This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Oil prices traded in a tight range on Monday as worries about rising output and the impact of U.S. tariffs on demand offset supply disruptions stemming from intensified Russia-Ukraine airstrikes. Brent crude fell 30 cents, or 0.44%, to $67.18 a barrel by 0500 GMT, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $63.73 a barrel, down 28 cents, or 0.44%. Trading is expected to be muted due to a U.S. bank holiday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky vowed on Sunday to retaliate by ordering more strikes deep inside Russia after Russian drone attacks on power facilities in northern and southern Ukraine. Both countries have intensified airstrikes in recent weeks, targeting energy infrastructure and disrupting Russian oil exports.
Egypt has signed 4 agreements with international firms worth more than $340 million to explore oil and gas in the Mediterranean and Nile Delta, the Petroleum Ministry said on Saturday. The deals, signed by the state-owned Egyptian Natural Gas Holding Company, provide for the drilling of 10 wells as part of the ministry's efforts to boost exploration and production. Egypt, once a regional exporter, has increasingly turned to imports to meet rising domestic demand as output declines from aging fields and investment lags in new ones. Gas production in May was 3,545 million cubic meters, down more than 40% from March 2021, according to the Joint Organization's Data Initiative.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Freight rates for Russian crude shipments from Baltic ports to India have risen in August, driven by fresh European Union sanctions and increased demand for tankers after higher loading volumes this month, trade sources said and shipping data showed. The cost of shipping Urals crude from Baltic ports such as Ust-Luga to India has climbed to about $6 million per one-way trip, up from $5.3 million to $5.5 million in July and early August. Rates for similar shipments from Russia's Black Sea port of Novorossiysk by Suezmax tankers, which can hold 140,000 metric tons, have risen to around $5.5 million from $5.2 million a month earlier.
India's rollout of fuel blended with 20% ethanol will hurt a vehicle's mileage by 2% to 4% but is safe to use, a lobby group representing the country's automakers said, aiming to assuage motorists' concerns in the world's third-largest car market. India set a 2025 target years ago for 20% ethanol blending in fuel, called E20, as part of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's focus on clean energy. But in recent weeks it has become the only choice at nearly all fuel stations, causing furore among drivers over its impact on vehicle performance and durability, especially older vehicles. Using E20 fuel in older vehicles lowers mileage but is not a safety risk, P.K. Banerjee, executive director at the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, told reporters late on Saturday at a news event in New Delhi. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Gold hit a more than 4-month high on Monday, as increased bets for a U.S. Federal Reserve interest rate cut this month lifted bullion's allure, while silver rose above $40 per ounce for the first time in more than a decade. Spot gold was up 0.9% to $3,475.94 per ounce by 0816 GMT, hitting its highest point since April 22. U.S. gold futures for December delivery gained 0.8% to $3,542.60. Dovish comments from San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly helped traders look past a higher core personal consumption expenditures read on Friday, and kept the door open for a 25 basis point rate cut this month, Citi Index senior analyst Matt Simpson said.
Iron ore futures slipped to their lowest levels in a week on Monday, hurt by shrinking steel margins and expectations of lower steel production ahead of a military parade in China. The most traded January iron ore contract on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange ended daytime trade 2.67% lower at 766 yuan, $107.09, a metric ton. It hit its lowest since August 20 at 761 yuan earlier in the session. By 0700 GMT, the benchmark October iron ore on the Singapore exchange lost 2.05% to $101.35 a ton, the weakest since August 25.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Indonesia is expected to produce 31.04 million metric tons of rice in the first 10 months of 2025, up 12.16% from the same period last year, according to an estimate from the country's Statistics Bureau on Monday. Rice output in the January to July period was 21.93 million tons, a 15.86% rise from the year-earlier period, the Bureau said. Output in August to October would potentially amount to 9.11 million tons, 4.17% higher than output in the same period in 2024, it said.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.